Thank you, Harry, for that intro music sketchbook with your band, and I really appreciate you. You're my son and confidant. My name is John Forlenza-Bailey, and I am a person in recovery, and I'm throwing out all our little characters and stuff today because we have the honor of a special guest, the founder of the International Recovery Day, September 30th. And I couldn't be more honored to have a man of this caliber being my first interview on the Hugs Not Drugs podcast. John Winslow, welcome to the Hugs Not Drugs podcast.
Thank you, John. And you know what? I am honored to be here and to be your first guest on your show, and congratulations on your show. Thank
you so much. We've only got one out there on YouTube, and I've done 4 for the sponsor of this show is the Road to Wellness Workbook, my book, and that's what I'm trying to do. Have a podcast to have a business to have a podcast. So I appreciate you so much. Can you just tell us about yourself and your work to support recovery over your lifetime? Just a small question.
I'll go ahead too. Yeah. Well, I need to go back to really pretty much the beginning, and that's the fact that I as well am a person in long-term recovery. Again, my name's John Winslow, and I haven't found it necessary to take a drink or a drug since January 21st, 1976, which puts me just a few months away at this point from celebrating 50 years of continuous recovery, God willing, and me being willing to continue to walk the path of recovery. So that's really the key piece is that I crashed and burned as a young man. I had just turned 26. Just to give a little background about me, the year prior to that, I had checked myself in to a VA hospital psychiatric unit at Perry Point, Maryland, and I spent 2 months there, not knowing if I was crazy. They suggested I might be an alcoholic drug addict, and I mean, that couldn't be because I was too young to be an alcoholic, and I came from too good a family background, and I had all these reasons why that just could not be the case. But I don't think that I'm crazy, but I sure did a lot of crazy things. After I really tried to get my act together while I was there, and they finally, gave me their blessing, gave me a pat on the back and a supply of some psychotropic medications. And I did what I thought was the most natural thing in the world to do, just getting released from the nut house, as I went out and celebrated, and I got rip-roaring drunk. Took a handful of the pills on top of that, because you never, mix and match, you never know. I thought that was the fun thing to do. And I continued on a downhill spiral for the next year. And then finally, on January 21st, I ended up having a head-on collision. And as I came to the next morning, John, I looked in the mirror, and I was horrified to see my broken teeth, the stitches in my face and forehead. I had taken a big bite out of the steering wheel, and my forehead cracked the windshield. And I just wanted to forget about the whole thing, but I realized I had to call my insurance agent and report the accident. And I asked myself, well, what am I going to tell him? Essentially, what lie am I going to tell him? The other guy's headlights blinded me, or poor weather conditions. Mm-hmm. I was a blackout drinker. I had no idea what had happened, but it was at that moment that I had what I call my moment of truth. I realized that despite all the excuses, the reason I had the accident is because I was drunk out of my skull and had been doing other drugs. And and I knew that I could not fix myself. So within a short period, I checked myself into a rehab and was on the road to recovery. Did you want to interject?
Yes, I just for clarity's sake, you had already had some significant losses in your life due to the abuse of alcohol, not your alcoholism, but someone else driving drunk.
When I was 17 years old, yeah, absolutely. When I was 17 years old, my sister, who was 2 years older than me, was on her way. She was a student at Towson State University, going to Florida, for spring break. And on the way down there, just outside of Atlanta, there was a man that crossed over the center line. He was taking a birthday present to his child. He crossed over the center line, hit my sister in her car head on, killed himself. And again, he was taking a birthday present to his child. Killed himself, killed my sister, killed my sister's best friend, killed my sister's fiance. And, and so tragic. And I went with my father to retrieve the possessions and retrieve her body. And I saw the sights in the car as I was getting the possessions, and I smelled the smells in the car. And I told myself I will never drink and drive again. Again, I was 17 years old. Promised that I would never drink and drive again. That promise that I made to God lasted all of maybe 2 or 3 months. And I couldn't tell you, I drank innumerable times drunk. Just not a thought in the world about somebody else's loved one that I could take. It was just about me, His Majesty the baby. It was all about me.
Yeah, this is the insanity of the disease, isn't it? You do believe it's a disease, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah.
No question.
Yeah, and I, being a therapist, I'm going to therapeutize you right now. I think you were making yourself feel good because of your love of your sister, and you didn't want to feel that pain.
I didn't want to feel that pain. I didn't want to feel a lot of pain. As a matter of fact, when I got sober, I had all this repressed grief, and I knew that the channels were blocked for me to release all this pain. I knew that I needed to do it. I was in training as an addictions counselor myself through a Johns Hopkins 6-month program in Baltimore. And during that, getting ready to close out my experience there, I was able to tap into this grief that I had. I removed myself from my training recovery community, got by myself, and was able to finally, the floodgates broke free for me, and I cried so hard that finally I couldn't catch my breath. I was crying so hard, and I had the thought, I'm going to die from suffocation if I can't catch my breath. And not only crying about my sister's, the loss of my sister, crying about my dog Wolfie that died when I was a boy. I mean, all this grief that I had repressed, I just was able to begin to release it. And I started laughing after that. It just was such an immense relief. For the next few months, I could cry at the drop of a hat.
Brene Brown talks about vulnerability, and that's what you had, the gift of vulnerability. You had the gift of desperation and the gift of vulnerability.
Absolutely right, and I cherish that
gift. What a healing.
I don't cry that often anymore. I had the opportunity. I talked to you last night about some of my singing and songwriting, and I was listening to a video of a John Prine song in the background. It had to do with a little girl that was by herself and crying, and it just opened up the floodgates for me because I have a daughter with an extensive background of mental health and addictions issues, and as a father loving his daughter, and as a son with my parents who not only lost their daughter but me and the depths of my addiction. It just it tapped into some more of that grief, and I believe that the tears are like liquid pain that we are able to release when we cry. We release some of that pain that's been trapped inside of us.
Wow, Liquid Pain. That sounds like another song title.
There we go. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Please continue. I just wanted that clarity because that really helped.
As I crashed and burned, got into recovery, and I threw myself into the recovery process. I no longer was on the debating team of am I or aren't I an alcoholic or a drug addict. I was thoroughly convinced. And as you say, addiction, I got through the treatment program that I was in, the Karen Foundation. It used to be known as the Chit Chat. I learned that, that it wasn't that I was a bad person trying to get good, that I was a sick person that needed to get well. I had a disease, and that it was progressive. It was potentially fatal and incurable, but it could be successfully arrested. And they showed me how to arrest it through a 12-step process through which I've been engaged in, from that point on. And so as a young man at the time, I was working as a civilian employee at Aberdeen Proving Ground, part of the war machine. And as I was beginning to, I had this conversion of consciousness experience and, recognizing that how can I continue to work in this realm as part of the war machine when I'm, living a spiritual life. And I knew that I needed to make a change. And so through prayer and meditation and consulting with my sponsor, who, his name was Leonard Dahl, and Leonard, at the time was the director of the Mann House. He went on to be the president of Father Martin's, Ashley. And so I had the good fortune of getting to know not only, my dear friend Leonard as my sponsor, but Father Martin and May as well. But anyway, I shifted my trajectory and left a secure job with the federal government to take a job at Springfield State Hospital down in Baltimore. I was an evening counselor, and that's where I got my beginning in working in the addictions field. And so went from there, got a job at Hiddenbrook in Bel Air at the time, a very reputable rehab, and they had budget cuts. I lost that job and went on to Live and Grin up in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. They had an excellent reputation, and then from there went into private practice. So I've been in the treatment field, and I went back to school. When I got sober, I was a high school graduate. I considered myself stupid because that's what I had been told that I was not a bright boy, and I never applied myself in school. But when I found my career path, my calling, if you will, because for me it was a spiritual calling, I found that I could not only go back to school when I applied myself, I became an A student, and like I could never imagine, that. So I ended up acquiring a master's degree, which opened up a lot of doors for me, and eventually ended up starting a private practice up in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and ran that successfully for about 20 years. And but over time, what I did is we eventually, my wife and family and I, moved down to Salisbury, Maryland, and I ended up being the director of an outpatient addictions treatment program there, and started. Was that in
Cambridge?
That was in Cambridge, Maryland, and started I had the opportunity to start one of the first recovery resource centers in the state, and there were very few in the country at the time. It was called Dry Dock Recovery and Wellness Program. So I was now starting to wind down. I had been in the field for many, many years, starting to wind down my career, but I caught this new bug, John. It was called recovery advocacy, and so and it sort of moved me. I think a lot of it was through my being involved in the recovery-oriented systems of care, and opening this recovery wellness center moved me into the recovery advocacy, recognizing that I was just a piece of, or one of the dots of recovery individuals and families and communities around the state of Maryland, and not only around Maryland. I broadened it over time to recognize, all the different recovery activities that were taking place around the country. We had September being Recovery Month, and that really broadened my eyes to seeing what was happening. I was mindful with my Dry Dock Recovery and Wellness Center. We created a wall of T-shirts of recovery activities that were occurring all around the country, and I'm mindful of John Shinholster in the McShin Foundation. He had a T-shirt that said "Hugs not." What was it? Cooking meat, not drugs, or something.
Right. I remember.
Yeah. Anyway, we had this very colorful wall of T-shirts from representing all these groups from around the country, and I started working for the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependency. Nancy Rosen-Cohen is still the director of that, and she brought me on as a program coordinator for developing recovery leadership in the state. And so through that and the close proximity to Washington, D.C., I was able to become involved on a national level with the recovery advocacy movement. And it was somewhere around that time that I met Greg Williams, who had his film, The Anonymous People, was just about to be released nationally. And that movie was a game changer for me and for many people around the country, that gave us a new language that allowed me, who had been one of those folks that, kept my message in church basements, gave me language that allowed me to come out of the church basements and speak publicly to say, introduce to the world, my name is John Winslow, and I'm a person in long-term recovery, which means that I have not found it necessary to use alcohol or other drugs for however long. And so with that new language, I began to really publicly step out and promote recovery advocacy. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the film director or the film?
Yes.
Anonymous People?
Greg Williams, and Greg Williams got into recovery at 17 years old, became a filmmaker, and he created this film called The Anonymous People, which gained many awards as a documentary film that demonstrated to the world that folks are stepping up and speaking out and putting faces and voices to the world that we do successfully recover from our addictions. We can and do recover.
Yeah. But prior to that, the if you wanted to blow your anonymity, you put a bumper sticker on your car. It seemed and nobody knew what the heck that meant. One day at a time, easy does
only
it.
Those that were within the fellowship.
So we were, but this like really catapulted. Let's not be ashamed of our recovery effort.
To the nth degree. I had the opportunity, and Perry joined me on this. Our friend Perry Gadurgis, who's a co-founder.
Yeah, if you can help Perry, you can help anybody.
Undoubtedly, yeah. So Perry and I had, one of the things that we did is we went up to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania during Recovery. It was at the time identified as National Recovery Month. And we marched in the recovery walk through the main street of Philadelphia, 25 3,000 strong, walking through the streets of Philadelphia. No shame, no blame, no guilt, putting ourselves out there that we can and do recover, and showing the world that, that recovery, that success is possible, despite having a potentially deadly, fatal, progressive illness.
When was this, John?
This was, Perry could tell you that when it was probably about 1999 perhaps, 2000 perhaps.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you want to talk more about the conception, the idea that you had about...
Yes, and right. And so, so going back to Greg Williams' film, The Anonymous People, and I was doing recovery advocacy work within the state of Maryland, and to an extent on a national level. I was reading two books at one point in the fall of probably 1999. One of them was the biography of Marty Mann, who was the founder of the National Council on Alcoholism, and she was also known as the First Lady of Alcoholics Anonymous. She was under the tutelage of Bill Wilson, who was one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she, Alcoholics Anonymous being the organization that was there to help alcoholics. She was the educational voice, aside from AA, that was able to step out publicly and promote that there is treatment for alcoholism and there is recovery from alcoholism. Yeah. So reading her biography, and at the same time, I was reading a new book at the time by William White. Bill White is a
tremendous researcher.
Tremendous researcher, tremendous author, has done a lot, he is the guru of the understanding of the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, the whole recovery movement. And he wrote a book called Recovery Rising. And so I don't typically read two books at the same time, but I was reading these two books. And I was just one night inspired by Marty Mann's talking about, there's a biblical term about don't hide your light under a bushel basket. And I'm not a religious person, but I am deeply spiritual. That's the core of my essence, my being. And so the Marty, promoting the idea of speaking out and the efforts that she did to educate the world about that people do recover from alcoholism. And Bill White's writing about the importance of, and there was a phrase that he had in his book, and one paragraph grabbed my attention about the value, the importance of the strength in numbers, and the more that we can collectively raise our voice to the world to show people that we do recover, how that's just a key ingredient to getting the message out to the world. And alongside that, I had also recently heard a very important, an icon to the recovery movement, Don Coyas, who is the founder of the Wellbriety movement that was based on the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, but he is a Native American, and he did a conversion of the 12 Steps to the language of Native Americans, and has through the Wellbriety movement, and so he has brought saved the lives of countless indigenous people, not only Native Americans but around the world.
Where's he located at? Is he still around?
He is still around. He's out west. I'm not sure if it's Arizona, Colorado. It may be Colorado, and his granddaughter, who's in recovery, Katori Coyas, is now carrying the message, and on his behalf, as he ages out, as many of us do, this whole concept of the silver tsunami that many of us.
I was going to ask you about that, but I'm glad you're mentioning it. That's great.
Yeah. So many of us aging out and looking to, to see how we can, make sure that the baton continues to be carried.
I always joke my expiration date is over. I don't know if I'm in the third quarter or the 2-minute warning here.
So anyway, Don Coyas, I was mindful that he had this, I think it was a vision that he had about the spider and the spider creating this web around the world. And so there was convergence of thought between Marty Mann, Don White, Bill White's writings, and Don Coyas, and my thought that in today's age that we now have the means of connecting the dots of recovery, individuals and families and communities through the use of technology. We can connect that around the world through the internet. That's that web that Don had that vision about. And so all this goes back to one 2-letter word, which is W-E, we. Before I got sober, I had to, in order to save my job, I had to get into a treatment program that was on the base of Aberdeen Proving Ground. And I had this counselor that frightened me. He was this little old wheezy guy, wrinkles all over his face.
Is this Joe Mass?
Very, very crabby kind of a voice. And what he would also often say in our therapy groups was, and he was an ardent 12-stepper, he would say, "We can do together what none of us can do alone." And I wouldn't say it to his face at the time because I was still drinking. But under my breath, I would say, "That's bullshit. I don't need you. I don't need this therapy group. I don't need AA. If I want to get sober, if I want to stop drinking, I'll just stop drinking."
Was that Joe Mass?
That was not Joe Massey. I got to know Joe Massey later, we've got the Massey Foundation up in Cumberland, Maryland, named after him. And he was one of my recovery heroes, Joe Massey. Father Martin was my first recovery hero.
But this guy that was telling you what we can do, he wasn't one of your heroes.
He was my first sponsor, but he was not one of my
heroes.
I fired him later. George Cargill, I think was his name.
Oh, God bless.
But God bless him. He really helped me.
Sure.
Get sober.
We're all necessary.
But I did not buy his thing about we can do together what none of us can do alone. Yeah. But that concept that I fought. It nearly killed me, and I ended up becoming deeply convinced that I could not do this thing by myself, that it was a we experience, and I ended up buying it hook, line, and sinker. It saved my life, and that is a key component to the whole concept of International Recovery Day, that it's a we process. And so I'm looking through International Recovery Day, through the use of technology, connecting the dots that we can and do recover from this fatal progressive illness if we're willing to do certain things. And so, it embraces all addictions. I figured, let's open it up, that AA is inclusive, NA is inclusive. There are other pathways, so let's open it up to all addictions: food addictions, sex and love, gambling, alcohol, drugs, what have you. Let's open it up to all addictions. Let's open it up to all recovery pathways: Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Smart Recovery, Wellbriety, and you can go Celebrate Recovery, and you can go on. There are many pathways to recovery.
I want to throw in a joke. There used to be a paranoid recovery, Paranoid Anonymous, but it had to disband because nobody would tell anybody where the meetings were.
That's right. Exactly right. So there are There are many recovery pathways. So let's open it up to all recovery pathways. Let's open it up to all addictions. Let's do it all on the same day, because we can do that with technology. Because with National Recovery Month, through the month of September, there are hundreds of events, large and small, from, a little gathering showing a film of the anonymous people, or having a little walk down. We're about to have our, next week, a walk down Main Street, Luray, Virginia, where I currently live, and I'm involved in this walk that we've created. To, like I say, one of the largest in the world is the Philadelphia, with their tens of thousands of people walking through the main streets. So let's, and I established it, as there are in September, all these different events that are occurring. Let's have it at the very last day of September. Let's establish September 30th as the day of International Recovery Day, and let's open it up to the entire world through the technology of the internet. So we created a website, and so between Perry Gadurgis, Nancy Rosen-Cohen, and myself, co-founding International Recovery, we established nonprofit 501c3 status, and we're able to then reach out and through the gift of one of my relatives, Louise Williams, she gifted me some money because to create a website, because she had invited me to breakfast one time, and she asked me how my efforts were going with International Recovery Day. And as much as I believed in it, I said, Aunt Louise, I believe in this. I believe deeply in the value of having a day dedicated to all addictions and recovery pathways. I said, but we've sought for some funding, and we just haven't been able to get any funding. So I think I'm going to have to let it go. But I believe if I let it go, somebody else is going to pick it up down where I think it's that important and that valuable. Somebody will pick it up. And she said, John, I believe in it also, and I want to give you the money to get your website built so that this thing does not die right now. So without her help, it may have fallen by the wayside. So I give my thanks and gratitude to her. I just saw her last week. She's 103 years old. And so she is just thriving. She can run circles around me with her memory. And so I dedicate also, I'm very grateful and indebted to her for the establishment. We got our website built. We got our Facebook that's out there. The website is internationalrecoveryday.org. And so it's a free registration. And so the concept was a simple one, is that you go to the website, you register, and on September, and if there's a message, when you register, a message about recovery, put your message out there. And it's open to those that are in recovery. It's open to those that have lost loved ones to addiction. It's open to those that have loved ones that are out there in addiction, or the people that are in support of recovery. Go ahead, John. You had a question.
Yeah, no, I'm just a comment to reiterate what you're saying about registration. After we conversed last night, and I love the fact that I'm talking to you, and you can't talk to me because you're going on stage in a few minutes. I thought that was, boy, Joseph Campbell will be proud of you. Follow your bliss, young man. And so I got on the website, and I registered. So I hope,
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's through your podcast. That's another, that this is another instrument that, as with all that you're doing with your podcast, to get the message out to folks that people can successfully recover from addiction and shift from being part of the problem to being part of the solution, as you have done with your life, John, and as I'm doing with my life. And so I would mention that in 2 days, on August 31st, is International Overdose Awareness Day. Oof. And it's an acknowledgement of the countless lives that have been lost through overdose. And so I think that it's very fitting that as we shift from the focus of those that have lost their lives over to Recovery Month and International Recovery Day, what we're looking to do is shift the conversation from the ravages of addiction over to the message of hope that people can and do successfully recover. So International Recovery Day offers a beacon of hope to those that are out there and to loved ones. With Al-Anon and Nar-Anon and all those that support, the family and friends that have loved ones that are out there in addiction, as well as those grieving from the loss of addiction.
International
International Overdose Awareness Day.
International. I mean that. I don't know the stat, the most current stat, but it seems like it's way past how many deaths that we have with automobile accidents. It's
Absolutely.
And it's way past the shootings that we have in America too. These two national tragedies don't compare to overdoses.
Not even closely, and so with the advent of fentanyl coming into the picture on top of the heroin with the overdose deaths, which has just skyrocketed the number of deaths, we saw those numbers climbing dramatically over the years. However, over the last couple years, only in the last couple years, have we begun to see those numbers drop in terms of the people that die from the overdoses. Now, it's not that there are fewer people that are taking heroin and fentanyl. We're getting flooded in this country. We believe that the reason that the numbers have started dropping in the last couple of years is the advent and introduction of Narcan out onto the streets to save lives. And I have to say, I am compelled to say that 2 or 3 weeks ago on national television, when the current president of the United States and his folks that stood behind him were talking about taking over Washington, D.C., one of the things that they said as they're taking over Washington, D.C., is that they are going to stop the use of Narcan out on the streets.
Which is basically, I'll say it, criminal.
It's turning back time in a dramatic and horrible way that lives are going to be lost. And if the federal government pushes the stop of the use of Narcan, it's going to be directly responsible for a lot of life.
We have Narcan in the treatment centers that I'm still involved with. Feral Treatment Center in New Britain. The staff has it right available. I have it at my fingertips. All I have to do is make a call to the next room because I do the outpatient from time to time. I mean, they have to be very desperate to get a silver Nasami in there, but sometimes they do. And so it really is I've had people come in and have grand mal seizures. Having a relationship with our police department, the emergency departments, ambulances to come in is just vital. And and training ordinary people with this is just going to be the way to go. I remember this the scene in Pulp Fiction where they saved Maya's life. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that.
Yeah, I do a lot of movie therapy, so I did John Travolta saves her life by pumping adrenaline into her chest, and this is way better than that. Way better than that. And you're absolutely right. So I hope that there'll be cooler heads and more restraint from our leaders. We need to use common sense.
Yes.
we are still talking, and I usually wrap this up in 30 minutes. How much time do you have?
Well, I have a meeting that I'm going to go to in a little bit.
Yeah. I don't want to. I want to interrupt that. So, what's the takeaway here? What did we learn today?
Well, the takeaway is that International Recovery Day, coming up in the last day of September, offers itself as a beacon of hope worldwide to those impacted by addiction. And so we invite people, your viewers and your listeners, to go to internationalrecoveryday.org and register and put your message out there for the world to see that that on that day, there's a globe, I don't know if you saw the globe or not, but there's going to be a globe rotating, and you were going to see fireworks that are being launched around the world, and you hear the little explosions of the fireworks going off that are signifying, each of those fireworks are signifying somebody around the globe that is saying, I am in recovery, right. Recovery works, and please join us in our road to happy destiny, if you will.
Right. What's the significance of the color purple?
It has just been identified, faces and voices of recovery, when they established many years ago and recognized the value of putting a face and a voice to people to come out of the shadows of addiction. They just identified the color purple as symbolic to our whole recovery movement. And so that's the foundation that we embrace that color.
Okay, I'm gonna close this out so you can get to your meeting. I just want to thank you, John Winslow, founder of the National International Recovery Day.
Yep.
Yes, this is why I'm not hit the big time. And National Recovery Day, and I'll end with a joke. There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's purple, and it's not a freight train.
Wonderful. Okay.
It's been an honor and a pleasure. Anytime you want to come back, carte blanche here, brother.
Thank you so much, John. I deeply appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Everybody have a great day and enjoy. Bye-bye.
So long, John. Thank you again. Thank you in person for the opportunity, John. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm signing off. Bye-bye. What a show, John Forlenza-Bailey. You're our sponsor, and this is Dr. Uggs from the Hugs Not Drugs Show podcast. And I just want to say that we're brought to you by John Forlenza-Bailey's Road to Wellness workbook. The workbook is designed to provide education, emotional support, and inspiration to persons suffering from addiction. It offers step-by-step lessons to people striving to turn their lives around regarding abstinence, relapse prevention, family dynamics, and self-assessment to continue to discover the day-to-day recovery effort. Recovery's up to you. Mentors help, journals help. You must exchange and surrender destructive behaviors for constructive ways of handling the day-to-day stressors of life. No one deserves to continue to suffer from active addiction. Get better, do the work. And we're going to go out. Our outro music is by Harry and his band, and the name of the tune is Sketchbook. Go for it, Harry, baby. Peace and love to everybody. Brothers and sisters, enjoy your day.